World Bank's released forecast for Nigeria's economic growth in 2019 dropped to 2.1%. This represents 0.1 percentage points lower than the 2.2% forecast made by the bank last year, October. This new forecast was contained in the April 2019 issue of Africa's Pulse, the World Bank's biannual analysis of the state of African economies. Abiodun Dominic, co-founder Friends of Nigeria, headquartered in France, would be sharing his thoughts on this. Thank you for joining me in the studio.
Thank you, Irene.
An expected decline in our economic growth by the World Bank, while we're still trying to grapple around paying, funding our debt. What can you make out of this, really?
Thank you. The reason is simple. We should also expect that this really was a forecast. Ideally, we're supposed to have a potential growth of 2.2, and now we have 2.1 projected, so 0.1%. So it's about meeting up with the potential that was forecasted. But four major reasons can be accrued to this decline, and one is high inflation, the second is infrastructural deficits, the third one being policy distortions, and the fourth one being a stagnation when it comes to oil production. And beyond having that, sphere, we should also know that this doesn't just influence Nigeria's GDP. The same World Bank reports also mentions the fact that when it comes to Africa, we have a deficit of 0.5% this year, and for next year, a deficit of 0.3%. So ideally, and if you ask the World Bank report, they will tell you this can be traced to three major countries, Nigeria being the chiefest, Angola being the second, and South Africa being the third. So beyond the fact that it affects us as a country, this is really a deficit for Africa as a whole.
So what should we be expecting moving forward with issues like this, really?
Mostly, just like I mentioned, the government has been talking about diversification of the economy. This is the best time really to begin to move from talks to action.
All right, and then let's talk a bit about, we know that Nigeria has got a huge untapped market. So let's talk a bit about where you reside and where you operate from, which is France. What are the developments with respect to the France-Nigeria trade?
Interesting. Within France-Nigeria trade, as of the first quarter of 2017, trade volume between France and Nigeria stood at about 1.8 billion euros. And up until the end of that same year, 2017, the engagement between both countries ended up at 3.6 billion euros. And that makes Nigeria really a foremost trade partner for France in sub-Saharan Africa. Emphasis on sub-Saharan Africa. So beyond that also, during the visit of President Macron, Nigeria has been able to move beyond that sphere. The gesture of the French government is showing interest in other sectors beyond oil and gas, such as agriculture, high-tech when it comes to innovations and startups, and also culture and entertainment where Nollywood falls. I've been seeing interactions in this sphere to still make Nigeria remain the foremost partner, covering about 20% of the French market in sub-Saharan Africa.
All right, before we go, let's talk a bit about what Friends of Nigeria is really doing in terms of helping with the ties between Nigeria and France.
As an organization, Friends of Nigeria has been at the forefront trying to promote Nigerians' attractiveness to foreign investors, majorly France, where we're headquartered. Last year, to be precise, we worked with 7 state governments at the biggest agricultural event called Salon de l'Agriculture. And we're able to get 7 state governments to work with French investors. Just 2 weeks ago, we brought about 7 to 10 French investors to the landmark center for the agro trade fair. So
the market is there exactly?
It is.
All right, okay. We're out of time now. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but thank you for joining me in the studio.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.